What's up everybody, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus. Today we are reviewing what happened in the Championship for match day 11. We've officially got a small break in the Championship, a planned break at least. We've got the international break taking place. The final couple of games of the Nations League are taking place within the next 2 and a bit weeks. So we've got a little bit of time just to take everything in and to review everything that's happened. And as a result, within the past couple of days, 2 managers have been leaving their positions. We've got some managerial vacancies open, some managers under great pressure as well. All of that will be discussed today. Before we move on, this is the current standings of the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. Wallace and Gromit fan with a commanding lead, a 7-point lead going into the international break. I'm falling down the table quite rapidly as well on 4th place right now, so I need to really get some momentum back after this international break is over. But there is at least 10 of you that are just outside reaching 24th place, and most of you are within 1 or even 2 points of reaching 24th. Honestly guys, keep going with your predictions, because I am noticing all of your predictions every single game week. Keep persevering, and then eventually, I'm sure of it, your names will pop up. If you guys like what you see in terms of my content, please give the video a like. It does tremendously help the channel. Please do hit the subscribe button as we're trying to reach 2,000 subscribers as soon as we can. That really does help the growth of the channel. And please also share the channel as well. All of that helps too. Without any further ado, let's start reviewing what happened in the Championship weekend. Let's talk about Swansea 3, Hull City 0. A really bad day at the office in Hull City, especially defensively as well. Ryan Manning got the first goal with a brilliant, exquisite cross, I dare say, by Sorinona, who I think has really grown into his role in the fullback position for Swansea and definitely has offered something extra attacking-wise. Ryan Manning running and ghosting into space to make it 1-0. Luke Cundle with definitely the most comedic goal out of the lot, but the defence, you know, with that whole back line there, definitely I am looking at Tobias Figueiredo and Nathan Baxter completely miscommunicating, giving Cundle a tap-in where it was a complete gift of a goal, and then it gets worse where Figueiredo just tries to play out for the back, passes it straight to Pirro, and he gets a simple goal, making it 3-0. So Swansea finally now starting to get into their rhythm, I feel, and definitely I felt were a little bit gifted in terms of this win. And I do think Hull at times, especially in the beginning of the game, looked a little bit more dangerous. But you can see by the attack momentum there, it was practically Swansea with 17 shots to 6. Hull with only 1 shot on target, and Swansea with 5. They could have even had more than the 3 goals they scored. So brilliant win for Swansea. Hull are in deep peril now. They're now starting to really struggle with their form. Down in 20th place in the table. Hull are now going to start putting some pressure onto Shota Aldervazi if he doesn't turn things around. Another team in pressure is Coventry City, as they've only picked up 3 points so far this season with 3 draws and are still within the only team in the whole Championship still looking for their first win of the season. The game ended as a 0-0 draw, a very local game between these 2 teams. And I've got to say, it was a good game. I do think both teams had their moments. I think Coventry had a really good spell. Then Birmingham, I think, especially in the second half, actually really grew into it. And I think when Gustavo Hamer got sent off, which, once again, is just typical Gustavo Hamer. I think it's a challenge that it may have been Chong or could have been made really. I knew it was someone with big hair. Did a tackle on Hamer. Wasn't the best one, but Hamer reacts and just kicks the player in the face, and because of that, he just gets a straight red card. And actually, after that red card, you know, Birmingham did have a couple of chances, actually, like right near the end. So 4 minutes of added time, you know, Coventry would have had a small sense of relief that they didn't get anything at the end. You can see that they did have that attack momentum there, Birmingham there. So I've got to say, if you look at the stats, very close in shots on target. Birmingham had more than what Coventry had. I think it was generically really close. So as a whole, draw probably a fair result. I'd say out of the chances and which team looked and created the stronger chances, for me it would have been Birmingham. But regardless, based on stats, I think a draw was fair. Birmingham would not be complaining too much about that. 17th place they find themselves, considering how badly they were looking in terms of their performances and the fact they were in the relegation zone. I think the recent deadline day signings has really elevated Birmingham, I feel. My only concern is that, are they going to continue that momentum going into the next couple of games? That's going to be interesting. But with Coventry, it's a bit worrying, I've got to dare say. Honestly, I think they could turn this around. But if they're still in the bottom three, when we have the break for the World Cup, I'll be having some serious concerns about Coventry, honestly. They really need to get this momentum back ASAP. We saw a top of the table clash between Burnley and Bristol City. It is Burnley who do edge out victorious with a 2-1 victory over the Cider Army. You can see with the attack momentum there, Burnley did dictate the game. And honestly, when Manuel Benson scored the first goal, I did think it was going to be a little bit more comfortable for them. But Bristol City, fair play to them, they really did try and get something out of this. Naki Wells literally only just squeezes the shot just over the line to make it 1-1. And after it was 1-1, Bristol City had a very small spell. There was a big chance that Conway had at one time, actually, but Muric manages to do well, actually, to get his body within the way there. And I actually say, I think in terms of goalkeeping performances go, I think Muric had a great improvement for what I've seen of him in a couple of previous games. And honestly, 2-1, it got down with Jay Rodriguez, Goodmanson with the assist. And overall, I didn't see Bristol City do quite that bit enough for me that were going to suggest they were going to equalise. It did feel like whoever was going to get the next goal was going to be Burnley, and I do think they slightly struggled a little bit more than normal to try and create some things there. You can see with possession, 72% to 28 possession. So Bristol City, I think, because they didn't really have a lot of the ball, they couldn't really try and hurt Burnley a lot with it. The counter-attack was pretty much the only option, and it looks like it was something that Burnley did work on. 6 shots to 5. So statistically, in terms of actually creating chances, it was really, really close. But possession-wise, it was definitely Burnley who edged it, who are now currently 4th place and pretty comfortably within the top 6 as of now. As with Bristol City, they fall down the table a little bit, but 14 points in the opening 10 games. A decent start, a much better start from Bristol City than what they've had in previous seasons. Now let's talk about Huddersfield 1, Cardiff 0. So these are the two teams now without a manager. So Huddersfield, this was their first game without having Danny Schofield as their manager. He's been let go, within a couple of days before this game took place. Huddersfield did have a managerial bouncing in, which I did anticipate, but I didn't anticipate them to get a win out of it. This is only their second win of the season. A 1-0 victory and a clean sheet for Huddersfield as well. You could see, look at this here. They barely had any attack momentum at all in that first half, and that says a lot. The only moment that we had was Jordan Rose getting the opening goal of that game. Although Cardiff did have the chance to equalise, and this is what I predicted. I did predict a 1-1. Callum Robinson having a penalty, and it was definitely a penalty. It was a high foot, and I don't know what Dwayne Owens was doing in that position, but Robinson steps up. It's a poor penalty and an easy save by Lee Nichols, and he can't have any complaints. Lacked power, and it was just not far enough into the corner. In terms of the second half goes, Cardiff definitely pushed more for an equaliser, but it just didn't feel like that Cardiff were looking like they were going to bombard Huddersfield with much pressure. I didn't feel Huddersfield really lose that sense of pressure, which they have done in previous games, which I'll give Huddersfield some credit for, but Cardiff definitely did feel quite disjointed. But what came out of this game was Steve Morrison has now parted ways as Cardiff manager. Now, the thing is, I didn't really back Steve Morrison, I've got to be honest. I wasn't too sure. But the thing is, I'm really surprised because I could see by the board he was backed. He got so many signings in, and you couldn't expect them to gel straight away. There were even some really promising performances with those signings, but I think with a couple of injuries recently and even more signings going in as well, it's not going to be, smooth sailing straight away. And to be honest, Steve Morrison's not done like a horrendous job in terms of the start of the season. It's around where Cardiff are the same thing, but it seems the ownership are still believing that Cardiff could be, within the top half and pushing for those top 6 places. And by the looks of things, if you look at their position here, 18th place, they're nowhere near that. But I feel like maybe a lack of communication and agreement of expectations could have contributed to that there. Huddersfield, despite that second win of the season, it does put them still 3 points off safety. But it's much closer now for the fact that Middlesbrough and West Brom failed to win their games. They've now closed the gap on that. So Huddersfield will definitely be feeling really positive, and it's going to be interesting to see who they get in. And can I just say, I know they've been linked with a couple of names. David Wagner is like the main one I'm hearing out as well. But picture this. Carlos Corberán has recently left Olympiacos. He's already left Olympiacos after 6 league games and 2 defeats in the Europa League to Nantes and, of course, Freiburg of Bundesliga. So now he's technically available. Huddersfield, do you think it might be a good idea to try and maybe bring him back and give him another go? He could potentially, just be like a Nathan Jones and just fit a mould in a team. So I would definitely consider Huddersfield trying to maybe go for him back, although I don't know if the fans are going to particularly want him back. As for Cardiff, who knows who they're going to go for? I know they've been linked with Nathan Jones, which is intriguing, but it's going to be interesting to see how the international break is going to make Cardiff develop in terms of the next couple of games, because they've got some really interesting games coming up. Luton Town go back to winning ways with a 2-0 victory over Blackburn Rovers. It was actually just 2 later goals, really. Carlton Morris and Rhys-Berg both scoring in the second half. And I've got to say, Luton did have to be pretty patient for this game. They were quite lucky, though, that they didn't concede, though. Ben Brereton Diaz did have a shot cleared off the line with some brilliant heroic defending. It may have been Tom Lockyer that managed to boot the ball off the line. But had Blackburn scored that early goal, I do think it would have been a really intriguing encounter. I think for the fact with the home crowd, it was still 0-0. And I think Luton attacking-wise did look a lot better. You could see this big spike here. This is when they got their 2 goals in. And they definitely did have some warning signs. Eventually, it did happen with Jordan Clark managing to square the ball in from the left-hand side. Carlton Morris doing the hard work, making it 1-0. And then Rhys-Berg with a marauding run, a little bit of a run with a lot of space, smashes a shot right within the right-hand side of the net, making it 2-0 to Luton Town. And by that point, I think when they got that killer second, it didn't look like that Blackburn was going to have the momentum to get back into this. Blackburn still, with that defeat, stick in 7th place because they've won 5 games this season already, Blackburn Rovers. Luton on 13 points. Now, they actually got the same amount of points as this stage last year also. So I was slating Luton a little bit, thinking that they didn't have a great start to the season, but I almost forgot myself that they also last year didn't have a particularly great start, but they grew into it. And I feel like Luton are now matching their expectations a little bit, and it's incredible really to see with the amount of pressure and expectation now that Luton Town have, they are still able to produce a lot out of a little, and I've got a deep found respect for them there. So great for Luton. Blackburn head scratching again in terms of their away form. John Tal Thompson's going to really have to deal with that. We see Millwall return with a home win with a 2-1 victory over Blackpool. Blackpool struggling just a tad in terms of picking up points recently. In terms of how the goals went through this game, the first goal came from a Dan Grimshaw own goal. I mean, I felt it was a little bit harsh. I thought Fleming should have deserved something out of this. It was a really, really great, chance that they managed to create there from nothing almost. But then the shot came in. Grimshaw tries to save it. It was another goal given with goal line technology. We had a couple of goals in the Championship this weekend given through goal line technology. At one angle, it doesn't look like it crosses the line, but I do think it's the initial shot that Grimshaw doesn't manage to get to that just puts the ball over the line, and that is how the goal is given. And actually, it's down as a Grimshaw own goal. It must have taken a slight deflection of Grimshaw before it went past the line clearly there. Then in terms of the equaliser, it was a really nice goal actually. Some brilliant play within the penalty box. A great pass by Jerry Yates to find Charlie Patino running forward. Brilliant strike. Took a deflection of the keeper, but that made it 1-1. And honestly, I am really excited to see the development of Charlie Patino. I do think he's a really special player. Second half goes, and you can see by the attack momentum, it was pretty much all Millwall. If anyone was going to get anything back, it was going to be Millwall. And Benny Kathobe was the man that did manage to get something in the end. It took on a shot with a deflection, and Benicaphobe finishing the job to make it 2-1 to Millwall. And Millwall were within like the bottom 7 before this match started, but now of that win, they're just below the top half of the table, only by goal difference. So they're technically joint, 12th or 11th, whatever you call it. Blackpool, with that defeat, 11 points out of 10 is not bad. But considering the opposition they faced at the start of the season, I do think Blackpool have not had a particularly difficult set of games on paper at the start of the season. I do think they've picked up 3 great wins in their own right. But I definitely do think there are potentially some full-blown issues there, just papering over cracks a little bit based on the position that they are in the table. I can only wait and see to see if this team can potentially kick on and improve upwards after the international break, or if they start falling downwards. And when you fall downwards in the Championship, it is very difficult to pick yourself back up. Another game that saw 2 clash of titans: Norwich 1, West Brom 1. I think it's just a continuous frustration of West Brom that they are playing so well in most of these games, but they're just not finishing these teams off, and they're not able to get the win over the line. Dara O'Shea, first goal of the game. Great free kick and set piece situation by John Swift to lead to that goal there. And for the most part, they do lead the goal well, and actually they do push on for a second, which they have squandered, in the odd time. Norwich, I felt with their winning streak, was impressive at how long they kept it. There were a couple of performances where I felt they were a little bit fortunate with that win. I think of 3-2 against Bristol City being one of those examples. They do get something with Sam Byron getting the goal. I mean, he completely stole it from Pookie, honestly, but he was onside, so, if it was offside, then West Brom would have won, actually, and it would have been a stolen goal from Pookie, but Sam Byron's going to take the credit to make it 1-1, and after that one, it really could have been anyone getting the winning goal in the end, but it does end 1-1. Norwich do lose out on a bit of ground. Sheffield United now extend the lead following that they won their weekend game. With West Brom, they're only above Middlesbrough by goal difference. It's shocking to see West Brom and Middlesbrough this low, considering the manager and the squad that they've got. I think both West Brom and Middlesbrough are going to potentially face some changes over the international break. International break is always a bit of a conundrum when it goes to managers. I'll be keeping my eye on West Brom and Middlesbrough, because definitely with the squads they've got, this start of the season is definitely unacceptable. As with Norwich, still alright, I definitely think they came at a good time this international break. Good recovery based on the start of the season. Now it's just seeing if they can sustain that after a break in football. Preston's lack of goals in the Championship continues to haunt them, as is another game where they don't score a goal. And in fact, Preston are the only third team actually in Championship history to score 3 goals in their opening 10 Championship games. That is a real concern, and they could really break some records if they're not careful, and some unwanted goal scoring records as well. Sheffield United, though, continue to show why they are the leaders of the Championship so far, just with the depth and quality that they've got. And both of their goals, I do think Preston will be quite disappointed with them. Weak goals for them to concede. Whiteman and Lindsay, lack of communication in the box, managing to give Ndiaye a very easy finish to make it 1-0 to Sheffield United just before half-time as well, 5 minutes beforehand. And then for the second goals, Andrew Hughes getting completely turned over by Sander Berger there. And then he supplies the pass to find all of them at Burnley to make it 2-0. So 2 defensive miscommunication/errors I definitely think were the cause. And Preston, whilst I'd like to say that they were in it, they barely threatened West following them as well. Whilst they did have 3 shots on target, they didn't really make him having to break a sweat, honestly. So something really needs to be addressed in terms of their goal scoring form. They need more confidence. And honestly, I do think if Preston can actually get into a good groove of goal scoring form, then I think Preston could have a decent team about them. But defensively, they weren't too great today. It was definitely the worst defensive performance I've seen from them so far this season. So a lot to be worked for Preston. But with Sheffield United, great position for them. 23 points, 3 points clear of Norwich, and to be honest, to pick 23 out of 30 in that start of the season, you're averaging over 2.5 points a game. And that is incredible for Sheffield United. The second and last 0-0 draw of this weekend came to QPR and Stoke City. You could see that it was pretty much a tale of two halves. Stoke having the first half, Dwight Gale managing to hit the bar from a free kick. But then QPR really grew into that second half. And I was very surprised they didn't actually score at least one goal with the chances that they were able to create at some certain times as well. You can see the stats, 20 shots to 8. 5 shots on target to Stoke City's 1 there. So definitely creatively, QPR overall did much better than Stoke City there. But you can definitely see a little bit of frustration going on for both these teams, that nothing was clicking for them. I definitely think both of them had a bit of an off day going forward, and I definitely think both can play better on their day as well. So both these teams are just going to have to try and swiftly move on from that. QPR in the 6th place actually following this draw, so I don't think they expected that, but a draw actually proved to be a positive result for QPR, as with Stoke. 14th in the table still. Good recovery from them as well, considering where they were a couple of game weeks as well. Alex Neil, though, does have a big job on his hand if he wants to turn this Stoke City team into a very competitive top half team in the Championship. We saw a really good game at Vicarage Road. Sunderland are just continuously entertaining us with these high-scoring games. It ended Watford 2, Sunderland 2, and the one shout I'll give for Watford is a Sprilla found Keenan Davis to managing to get the tap in to make it 1-0. It was a really well worked goal in that moment there. But Sunderland do sneak back. It's another goal, yet again, you've guessed it, that required goal line technology to be confirmed. It looked like that they just barely got across the line. Chowdhury tried to clear it, but unfortunately it was fully over the line, the ball, so that made it 1-1. But Luke O'Nien heads the ball spectacularly in his own net. That made it 2-1 to Watford, and I thought by that moment there, I thought Sunderland blew it. They played, with a lot of spirit and played quite well, but I thought Watford were going to nick it. But Jewison Bennett, in the 87th minute, a brilliant goal actually to make it 2-2 in the 87th minute, took his shirt off and got booked for that celebration there. But the passion, you can't deny it. How close this game was, 13 shots to 12, 5 shots on target to Sunderland to 4 there. It was really tight, and honestly, looking at those stats now, you may disagree with me in terms of the quality of chances, but looking at those stats in a numerical sense, I think a draw seemed fair. Watford, 10th place with 14 points right now. And honestly, you can definitely see that there's a little bit of a gap compared to Norwich and Burnley, and then Watford all the way down there as well. And I did think that Watford, I felt, out of those 3 relegated teams from the Premier League, would struggle to kick on at the start of the season. Sunderland, 5th place. And honestly, the consistency I'm seeing from this Sunderland team to actually stay up there is really giving me a really good sense of excitement. Reading continue to surprise all of us. I've got to say, I'll put my one hand up and say, I didn't expect Reading to start this well. I thought with Wigan, still doing relatively well, I thought Wigan could get something here. But it's still no wins at home for Wigan Athletics. So they're having a real issue, Wigan, with their home form at the moment. Although they were really unlucky not to score at one stage. They hit the post after Tom Ince did spectacularly well to score a free kick. Honestly, that free kick gave me nostalgia seeing like the original Tom Ince that I remembered, from when he played in his prime for, I'll say, Blackpool, when he was playing in those days. And those days were like 10 years ago. And honestly, I think he's just had a lull like in the past 4 or 5 years where he's just not performed up to par. But since he's reunited with his dad, with team and management, he's been playing his best football since. And I think that morale is really important for the whole squad. And you could definitely feel a sense of, communities, a sense of a team for Reading there. I definitely think they've got a really good team within them. And even better news, they got Andy Carroll back as well. A brand new signing very recently for Reading. 61% to 39%. But look at this, 0 shots on target for Wigan. So I'll say it once and say it again. Wigan need to sort things out at home, because whilst they're mid-table right now, I actually think another team that's had a brilliant recovery based on the opening couple of games of the season and the pressure that Liam Richardson was put under, great recovery, but they definitely need to try and give something for the fans. Give them that home win, because it's definitely going to egg this team on, and I definitely think it'll help with their momentum. As with Reading, I mean, look at this. 3rd place. I didn't expect this. It's reminded me a little bit when Reading had that really good start in Panovic's first season there. They did, after that brilliant start in that particular season, drop off a cliff a little bit. I'm going to be very interested to see if Paulies can have the manager credibility to keep this team out there, because they've proven to me with their performances they can do it. It's now just being consistent. I clearly can't counter 3 because I said that QPR and Stoke was the last 0-0 draw. Completely forgot about this game. Middlesbrough 0, Rotherham 0. So 3 0-0 draws this weekend, which surprised me, I've got to be honest. Especially when I looked at the highlights of this game. I don't know how Middlesbrough didn't even score at least 1 goal. Watmore should have definitely scored 1 in the second half. In the 48th minute, I think it was exact. Got a touch, managed to get past Johansson, did all the hard bit, but couldn't direct the ball off target. It hit the post and no Middlesbrough player was there to try and get any rebound, and that was really disappointing for me. Rotherham were happy to sit back. You know, they didn't have a lot of the ball, 44% of possession there. 0 shots on target for them, but despite Middlesbrough having 13, only 3 of them were on target, which is definitely showing to me that they're really struggling to be clinical. That's an under 25% conversion rate, which is not great so far for this Middlesbrough team. And because that they've been struggling with goals, they find themselves in 22nd place. You know, I say struggling for goals. Look at that, they got 13 goals, but when it goes to tight games and teams that sit back, you know, they can't find the 1 goal that gives them a 1-0 win. You know, they've drawn a good amount of games. 4 games they've drawn out of their 10, but with only 2 wins in 10, a lot of pressure is going to be put on Wilder, especially the expectations that all of us had for Middlesbrough to start the season. I don't think any of us would have predicted Middlesbrough to be in the bottom 3 before the first international break. With Rotherham, as you can see, a bit similar to Sunderland, a brilliant start to their season back up from League One. And Rotherham, well, I remember about them, they do tend to start the season very, very well. But in all of my years watching Rotherham, I don't think I've ever seen them be this high up the table by the time we've had the first international break. So yes, Rotherham tend to start the season well, but I've got to say, it does give me a little bit of excitement that maybe Rotherham are here to stay, and it'd be nice to see them to finally get some consistent championship years. So guys, to end the video today, let's actually review the championship table. So I'll just zoom out a little bit just so you can see the table in full. So you can clearly see Sheffield United are right at the top of the table there. Norwich on 20 points just behind. Reading, Burnley, Sunderland and QPR make up the rest of the top 6. Blackburn, Rotherham, Bristol, City and Watford just below that. In terms of the teams in danger, you're really looking from, I would say at the moment, Cardiff downwards are the teams you're definitely going to have to watch over so far, because they are only within 2 points, or no, 1 point I should dare say, of falling into the relegation zone, with Middlesbrough on 10 and then up to 18th place Cardiff, only 1 point separating them. Coventry, 7 points of safety with 3 games in hand, don't get me wrong, but it's not looking good for Coventry. And with Huddersfield, they've got 3 points of safety, but with 1 game in hand. So guys, that will wrap it up today for my review for the Championship Match Day 11. If you guys enjoyed the video today, please do let me know in the comments down below if you want to continuously see this sort of content on my channel. If you want to see any more content during the international break, let me know what type of content and I'll try and get my way around it. But guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Please smash the like button if you've not done so. It does really help the channel. If you've not hit the subscribe button, please also do that. That also really helps. And please share the channel too. All of those things really do help. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.